Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am honestly so incredibly thrilled to have you here today because we're unpacking a concept that, well, it sounds like absolute magic on the surface, right? But as our sources reveal, it actually hides a deeply fascinating and, frankly, terrifying reality underneath. We're talking about the paradox of telepathic proximity. I want you to imagine waking up tomorrow morning with the literal power to read the minds of anyone around you. But there's a catch. It only works within a strict 10-foot radius. Sounds like a fun pop culture trope, doesn't it? Just a neat little trick to have up your sleeve? Well, let's look at what the research and analysis actually say about this so-called gift. Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to genuinely place yourself in this scenario. What if you could read minds, but only in your intimately close everyday spaces? Picture yourself, just standing in a slow-moving grocery store checkout line, surrounded by total strangers. Or imagine stepping into a crowded, dead-silent elevator on a Monday morning. Think about sitting at your own dinner table with your family. 10 feet is an incredibly intimate boundary. It's the space where real life actually happens. So having the superpower in those tight spaces sounds like an absolute game changer, doesn't it? Well, prepare to have that expectation totally shattered, dropping you directly into the unfiltered, raw consciousness of the people right next to you wouldn't be a superpower at all. In fact, it would act as a severe psychological and sensory disability. It wouldn't make you a superhero. It would instantly shatter your relationships, completely dismantle your daily routine, and frankly, it would just break your sanity. So let's break down exactly why this 10-foot intimacy is a recipe for absolute disaster.
Section 1. The sensory nightmare.
First off, we really need to dismantle this movie magic version of telepathy that we've all been sold. Pop culture basically always depicts mind reading as these clear, perfectly punctuated voiceovers. It's like someone is standing in a sound booth inside the character's head reading a perfectly formatted script. Stuff like, I wonder if she likes me, or, oh no, I left the stove on. It's linear, it's clean. But reality? Reality is an absolute mess of simultaneous chaos. The human brain simply doesn't think in neat, perfectly grammatical sentences. It just doesn't.
The source material gives us a brilliant term for this: brain soup. Our minds operate in this chaotic, simultaneous soup. Imagine standing next to someone, and at the exact same millisecond, you're hit with visual flashes of a movie they saw, raw emotional impulses of sudden unexplained stress, half-formed melodies of a commercial jingle, and the physical sensation of their tight shoes, all crashing into your brain at the exact same time. It's a relentless, high-speed barrage of raw, unfiltered data. And this brilliantly illustrates what would happen in a completely mundane situation, what we can call the bus stranger scenario. Imagine standing within 10 feet of a random stranger on a public bus. You wouldn't just hear a neat internal monologue about their day. No way. You would simultaneously experience the chorus of a terrible pop song they absolutely cannot get out of their head, colliding with a sudden, sharp flash of panic about a utility bill they forgot to pay, layered over the physical, phantom sensation of an itch on their ankle, tangled up with a random, vivid memory of their childhood living room, literally every single second. 3 or 4? That's just the number of people who might be standing near you on that bus. Now, I want you to multiply that chaotic, overwhelming cognitive noise we just talked about by 3 or 4 people nearby. To put that into perspective, the sheer volume of raw data, the sheer noise of all those intersecting thoughts and feelings, it would be completely deafening. You literally wouldn't be able to hear yourself think, let alone function in normal society.
Section 2. The collapse of social friction. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it exposes the reality of our daily interactions. Human society functions almost entirely on a network of small, polite, protective lies. We desperately need these filters to maintain harmony, respect boundaries, and, just spare each other's feelings. But within that 10-foot radius, those vital filters vanish completely. Imagine a passing acquaintance says, "Hey, great to see you. Have you been?" But in your head, you immediately overhear their actual thought, "Oh no, I don't have the energy for this conversation. Please don't stop walking." Or imagine pitching a new creative concept at work. They nod and say, "Wow, that's a really interesting idea." But you hear the devastating truth. "This is completely unworkable, but I don't want to be the one to hurt their feelings." And perhaps the darkest one, a comforting friend telling you, "Don't worry about it. It happens to everyone." While you clearly hear their internal relief, "That was incredibly embarrassing to watch. I'm so glad that wasn't me." It's brutally funny in a dark kind of way, but practically, it would utterly destroy your ability to interact with anyone. And that naturally leads us right to the emotional toll. Knowing the secret, unfiltered reality behind,
literally every single interaction would breed this intense toxic paranoia. Because it's one thing to hear the random, chaotic thoughts of a stranger on a bus, right? But it's another entirely when it comes to the people you hold dearest. Even the people who love you the absolute most, your friends, your family, your partners, they all have fleeting, random moments of irritation, judgment, or boredom when they're around you. It's just perfectly normal human behavior. Usually, they dismiss those ugly micro thoughts a second later. But you would hear every single one of them, every passing annoyance, every tiny split-second judgment, beam straight into your consciousness. It would quickly become impossible to believe anyone truly loved you because you'd be hyperfixated on these meaningless, momentary internal grievances. Section 3. The 10-foot tactical adaptation. Let's move to and see how this builds into your actual lifestyle. So, how do you even survive this? Well, to keep your sanity intact, your physical behavior would have to completely warp around the geometry of your power. You'd be forced to become an absolute master of spatial awareness just to exist. First, you develop what the source calls the pacing habit. In public, you'd find yourself constantly shifting, dodging, and pacing around like a nervous animal, literally just trying to keep a strict 10-foot buffer zone between yourself and the rest of humanity. And this inevitably leads to step 2, the agoraphobia shift. Dense cities, crowded markets, public transit, they would all become entirely unnavigable. The sheer density of people would make urban life an absolute waking nightmare. Because of this, you would naturally be forced to migrate. You'd seek out rural areas, wide open outdoor spaces, basically anywhere you can guarantee you're completely safe outside that 10-foot danger zone. You'd adopt a hyper-isolated lifestyle, likely interacting with people exclusively through digital screens where their thoughts just can't reach you. Think about it. Your entire existence would be defined by measuring physical distance from other human beings.
Section 4, the ultimate trade-off. So the crucial point is really the philosophical core of our explainer today. Because ultimately, knowing the absolute truth of what people think about you and what they think about the world around them, well, it strips away all the necessary mystery of human interaction, and it forces you to make a profound choice between two massive extremes. On one side, you have absolute isolation. This is the lonely protection of your own mind, retreating from society to ensure you never have to hear the painful, chaotic reality of others' thoughts. On the other side, you have radical empathy. This means staying in society and forcing yourself to deeply accept humanity for exactly how messy, incredibly insecure, and beautifully flawed it is beneath the polite surface. It means accepting that people can love you while simultaneously having an ugly micro-thought about you and actually forgiving them for it instantly. It's an impossible bind, really. Do you protect your sanity by cutting yourself off from the world, or do you embrace the raw, unfiltered truth of human nature at the cost of your own comfort? Knowing the heavy burden of the 10-foot rule, absolute isolation, or radical empathy, which would you choose? Think about that the next time you're standing in line at the grocery store. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you on the next one.